Hi, and welcome to week 3, God's person and attributes. So this week we're going to be exploring who is God and what is God like, while looking at Grudem and Erickson and other theological scholars. Congratulations, by the way, on completing week 2. So for this week, we're going to explain how our understanding of theological language helps us understand what it means to talk about God and to define key divine attributes and apply them to Christian life and ministry. And then finally, to articulate responses to current debates about the nature of God. A lot of really deep and important topics that we're going to go through this week. So in our first assignment, assignment 3.1, in 2 to 3 pages, compare and contrast Erickson's treatment of one divine attribute that he discusses in chapters 11 or 12 with the handling in at least 2 other systematic theologies. In other words, look at Erickson's treatment of one divine attribute, and then look in at least 2 other systematic theologies, which you can find on Logos, to see how they differ and how they agree. Now, it's much easier to write a paper if you can find someone who disagrees with Erickson. It's a lot easier than trying to defend a paper where you just go, they agree, they agree, they agree. So read through a couple, find one that is substantially different and find one that is a little bit different, and use those as your foil to write your paper. So you're going to include quotes and information from Erickson, you're going to include biblical support, and you're going to include outside research to explore one divine attribute. There may be some differences in the names of attributes among various theologies, so be sure you are dealing with the same attribute in all the theological references. Discuss the limitations of human language as relevant to the attribute you are discussing, and explain how the different discussions are both helpful and possibly problematic. And then briefly describe the practical significance of the attribute for Christian life and practice. And I see that being your conclusion paragraph, where you're giving me personal reflection on what you believe, and then giving me applications for the modern church. With all of that, I'm looking for incredible, solid academic research at this point. Assignment 3.2, in 2 to 3 pages, evaluate Erickson's discussion of immanence and transcendence. Immanence being the closeness of God, transcendence being more the in the clouds God looking down on mankind. A great way to do this is by looking at Genesis 1, 2, and 3, actually 1 and 2 primarily. Some feel that one half of that passage is immanent God, and the other is a more transcendent God, but there are lots of examples in the Bible that you might use. Be sure to start first with a summary using quotes and citations of what you find in Erickson, and just like in Assignment 3.1, it is always helpful to look at other systematic theologies and reference how they agree or disagree as your outside research portion. So how do these paired components, immanence and transcendence, help Christians maintain their distinctiveness from competing worldviews like pantheism and deism? It's a really important topic. So the first half of your paper is really going to be an exploration of what is immanence, what is transcendence, using Erickson, outside research, and biblical support. Your second half of the paper is going to be an analysis of other competing worldviews of theology, and how and a knowledge of immanence and transcendence impacts an understanding of pantheism and deism. That is also due next Monday at midnight. So we have 2 written papers, and then we also have a discussion post. And like normal, we have 2 different options for your discussion posts. In option 1, you can answer the following questions. Question: apart from the Trinity, we'll be exploring that more directly over the next week. What do you think are the greatest misunderstandings people have about the nature and person of God? So what do you think people don't understand or people misunderstand about God? I want you to use biblical support. I want you to use research support as you give your opinion. How do they express themselves in contemporary churches, culture, literature, and the arts? So first, what is it? And then show that to me with your research and your personal opinion. And then apply it in our modern church or in our modern culture or in literature or in movies or in songs. How are these misunderstandings of God perpetuated? So I want you to provide specific examples. In option 2, what are some of the implications of the limits of human language to talk about God as we do theology? So how does our own communication, our own language, our own thought processes impact or limit our ability to understand God? In the Eastern Church, theology is one response to these concerns. And how should we think about language about God, especially when we describe attributes which have human parallels? Walking, talking, emotions. And so how should we think about language about God, especially when we describe attributes like God walked with Adam and Eve in the garden, and God spoke, and God did this. And so when we anthropomorphize God, what does that do? And how can we help people understand these limits? Now, your reading does address this, so you're not starting from scratch, but it's a really difficult topic. So I look forward to seeing, for those of you who choose option 2, how you treat the topic and how you bring it to life and how you solve these questions. As always, discussion posts are due on Friday at midnight, with ongoing discussion over the weekend, concluding Monday at midnight. Now, with assignment 7.3, continue working on your theological synthesis. I know week 7 feels like a long time from now, but if you're not staying current on this assignment now, then when we reach week 7, you're not going to have enough time to do a thorough job. So begin to summarize your own conclusions and convictions about the topics covered this week, a theological statement basically on the nature and attributes of God. You will complete this topic next week, where you will continue this topic, not complete it. Continue this topic next week when we cover the Trinity. Note this topic may extend beyond a single page, but try to distill it down and be concise. As always, some last thoughts. Be sure to use citations. We're supposed to be using Turabian. I don't mark off if you use MLA, but if you do it correctly. Include outside research, engage in biblical passages, and then try to really work. This is a senior level class, or a final level class, we could say, in your master's program. And I am really expecting you to begin to dig deeper into these theological topics. If you're skimming the surface, then I'm going to count off, because I really want some in-depth, solid research and personal reflection on these theological topics. Feel free to email me or call me with any questions. And I hope you have a great week exploring the nature of God.